another episode of With the Chiefs.
Wait. Man, I need more rest.
I hope I've got your last name right there.
It's a very good pronunciation.
You should know better than that now, Dom.
I know. Welcome back to another episode of With the Chiefs. Today we've finally got another guest on after a couple of weeks off with just me and Smitty talking crap.
Yes, sorry about that.
We've got the pleasure of having Nathan Breen on this week. He's a PE teacher. I think he was a pro triathlete. He has 53-minute sprint triathlon, which is pretty impressive for anyone who knows triathlon. He does a bit of surf lifesaving, and he's a pretty handy runner as well, with PBs of 14:40 and 30:57 for the 5 and 10K. So yeah, we're pretty excited to chat to Nathan about all things sport and running. So welcome to the show, mate.
Welcome, mate.
Pleasure to be on, and first time podcast. Geez, I'm impressed you've done your research.
you didn't see him 10 minutes before on his iPhone. So it sounds good.
I don't know what else to say now.
Yeah, no.
I've covered it.
Yeah, that's it. That's a wrap. Great podcast. No, usually we start off with just talking about like training weeks and where you're at, what you're training for. So what's the last week sort of been like?
Yeah, I guess with work and everything, it's been like this for a while since post-COVID. I've sort of just been doing running, like triathlete, just focusing a bit on running at the moment. But yeah, just trying to string some consistency together to sort of get that work-life balance and enjoying running for what it is. I guess during COVID, it sort of made you realise, the benefits of running without the competition element as well. So I'm enjoying racing when I can, but not really working towards anything in particular at the moment. I want to change that. I want to focus up towards something or having a more tangible goal to work towards. But yeah, sort of just running probably 50 to 60k weeks at the moment. So not overdoing it a hell of a lot, but pretty much on a Monday I'll do my long run on a Monday. Tuesday will be, because I train with the run crew, we do our track set at ES Marks. Wednesday, sort of just a fill-in easy 45 minutes or so. Thursday, sort of a more speed session, shorter intervals. Friday, normally day off the legs, just have a rest. Saturday, normally with run crew as well. At Centennial Park, we do a tempo or a threshold session there. And Sunday, just a fill-in easy run again. So, and obviously that changes if I race, and it changes quite a bit. But yeah, if you ask me a typical week, that's probably what it looks like.
Yeah, right. And I guess doing triathlon, do you have a bit of swimming and cycling in there as well? Or?
Yeah, so I haven't, my cycling I've been a bit lazy with at the moment. I've been sort of, just trying to juggle everything. Swimming, now that it's easy to be a bit more motivated because it's springtime now. So yeah, trying to get up for the early mornings, trying to do about 3 times a week at the moment. So I haven't really competed in triathlon for quite some time, and I'm definitely looking to get back into it. Just, I love the sport, just haven't been able to commit the time recently, just with full-time work and the demands of that. Just, I guess as well, just like coming home from work, sometimes motivation, just if I haven't done something in the morning, then I'll end up just sitting on the couch watching Netflix or just wanting to unwind and mentally and emotionally reset as well. So at a crossroads at the moment,
Yeah.
What's the percentage of times you would not go out after, you reckon? Because I have similar things. If I don't go in the morning, it's like probably 70% chance I'm not going to go.
Yeah, I think it's sort of one of those things as well. Like when you actually get out there and you start running, you're fine.
Yeah,
you could do an hour and a half, 2 hours, no problem. It's
absolutely.
just getting the stuff on, getting out the door. And running, the great thing about running is that you don't have to actually even invest the effort to drive somewhere. You can literally do it from out the front of your place. Obviously, it's harder for some people because they live in really hilly and undulating areas, but that's what I love about running as well, just the freedom and just how inclusive it is. Like, you don't really need to have much equipment at all. You just
put your shoes on.
Whatever you got in a pair of shoes. Sometimes, when I I take my stuff to work and just go straight from there as well, because it doesn't require much thought or effort.
Yeah.
Particularly just an easy run. It's sort of to clear the mind after a stressful day at work can definitely be the best thing for you. It's just convincing yourself to get out there.
Yeah,
that's
in the first place.
That's true. I find that's the same case with rain. In the morning, I find it quite easy to get out because it's such a habit. Obviously, doing all your running in the morning. But if it's raining, it's like looking at the door, looking at the shoes, looking at the door again. But yeah,
just thinking of a million things you'd rather do.
yeah, debate like how, because there's a tin roof here as well, and it's like it sounds loud, but it's like not loud. It's not. There's not much rain normally, or if there is heavy rain, it sounds 10 times heavier than it is. But anyway, yeah. Dom, what about your sort of week?
Yeah.
What have you been doing?
So this is like the bit of a taper week. I've got UTA coming up next week. So, I think the week before I was probably just freaking out a bit too much and was going a bit too into like my diet and trying to like lose weight and really like watching what I was eating and stuff like that. And then the start of this week, I was just like, felt like, oh, stuff it, like picking out for a couple of days and just kind of let the reins loose and ate like a bit of crap and took a couple of days off of running. It was just not in a great space really. I guess like that's the kind of like the tricky thing with diet and stuff like that. Like I feel like your body's got to balance and
you don't want to make it a chore. That's the thing.
Absolutely.
You want to be diligent with it, but it's got to be sustainable. That's it's got that stigma, that word, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Diet. It means it sounds restrictive.
True.
It sounds like a punish or a chore. So
yeah. And I think that I was probably just getting a bit too obsessed with it. And then this week I kind of had the first 3 days off. And then kind of had enough of that and decided, okay, let's do some running.
So what were you doing in the restrictive phase? Just
I downloaded like there's like an app that tracks your calories and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then was just trying to meet the calories and make them match for the day. But I even felt that was like not enough, and I don't know. I don't think it's a very good thing to do.
I find the issue is whenever I've tried to do something like that, I'm consciously focusing on it, which kind of stresses me out. Yeah. Whereas, I don't know, probably my eating habits aren't fantastic, but whenever I've gone towards that, and it's just stressed me out. I don't know. But you can probably do it for a short period of time, I would say. Yeah, well, I don't know. I didn't know why I wanted to do it. I think maybe because the program I'm on, there's a bit less Ks than what I've previously done, but I got a coach to give me the program, so I should probably just trust in them a bit more and not be worrying about things like this too much. But so Thursday I did a double and a session on the track in the afternoon, which was like a pyramid session where you go 1 lap, 2 laps, 3 laps, 4 laps, and then back down 3, 2, 1. Yeah. And I jogged a lap in between.
Should do it the other way. Finish with a 4. Just mental. That's a mentally tough session. Yeah. It's always good having the 4 and then going back down, just doing the 1. But if you finish with the 4, it's like, it's the last thing you want. Yeah, my God. You're lactic already.
Yeah, that's nuts.
I don't know what that session. What is it?
So you do what we did 1 lap, like 1 lap rep. Yeah. And then I jogged 1 lap recovery or floated 1 lap recovery for all the recoveries. Okay. And then then you go 2 laps. That's the next rep.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that makes more sense now.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's
like a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Like
I was like, what have you been? Okay. Oh, good. I got it. It takes me a bit.
And then Friday I think I was just jogging around. Saturday I met up with Arthur and we did like a hilly tempo around Bull's Head.
What is that like? Is it?
It's hilly.
Is it how long?
It's not too bad. The loop's I think 2.7 Ks or so.
Okay.
And it's kind of a weird loop. Like you wouldn't naturally pick that's where you should run.
Enough variety in it. It feels like it doesn't feel quite like 3K.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think you can kind of like there's different kind of segments you can kind of chunk up, which you get past like this point and then it feels like you're you're starting like a new rep almost, or
Yeah.
like you'd gone somewhere different. But yeah, it's good like that.
Can you get the crown?
Yeah.
Sam Hopper.
Yeah. I did like one hot lap because I don't know, starting to taper and stuff. So I was like, I'll just push this one and see how we go. And then just jog the rest with the other guys, which was good. And then today's just been chill. I got on the exercise bike at home because it was raining and I didn't want to go for a run. But yeah.
When was it raining?
This morning.
Okay.
And I don't know.
I was like, I'm on the same.
Normally we don't get hit in God's country in the Shire, but we got absolutely demolished this morning.
Yeah,
absolutely demolished.
Classic me thinking Summerhill is everywhere, but anyway.
But yeah, UTA was interesting as well. There was like a bit of a whisper and rumour about course changes going around.
More rumours.
Yeah, so I think that they like released a new map.
Yep.
For a couple of hours or so, or minutes, and then they quickly took it down. And it had some big changes. So I think.
How could they change what would the rationale sort of be?
Oh, with all the rain, the tracks around the Blue Mountains are just like not in good condition, and it's not safe to have 9,000 people running on them. Probably
9,000. Is that big cost?
Yeah, well,
wow.
over
That's
all the distances and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so there was kind of like that rumour going around, and it still hasn't been confirmed. But yeah, if they do change the course, which well, actually I think they just said in an email that they are changing the course, but it hasn't been confirmed what course it'll be. So yeah, it'll be a lot flatter, which is probably good for me, and it's still like a run in the Blue Mountains, which is fine. Like that's what we signed up for. So yeah, looking forward to it. But yeah, it's interesting. A lot of negativity kind of flying around, which was...
You have to be adaptable, don't you, with that? How long is it? It's been cancelled twice, this one, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Is this the second?
Yeah,
wow. just preparing for that, like the amount of work that would go into 50 or 100k in particular.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
just having to
shift.
Somehow just have that down period you normally have, or that lull after a race normally when there hasn't been a race, then build yourself up to motivate yourself for the next one. It must be difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm looking forward to it regardless, and hopefully something goes ahead, which would be good. But yeah, not long now. What about you, Smitty? How's your week going?
Me, it's the last of sort of coming down from the marathon, so I think just jogging around still. So I think Monday... No, that's your week, Dom. I did 60 minutes easy, so it's all been last 3 weeks have all been easy. I feel like my body's been given a nice rest, but mentally I'm very keen to get back into sessions, like very toey. I think I talked about it last episode, but yeah, ready to get back. So Tuesday was off, but I went with Mum around Breakfast Point. Wednesday was 60 minutes easy. Thursday was 60 minutes easy. There's not much excitement here, is there? Friday, day off, and then Saturday, there was a mystery session in my program. So Sally didn't tell me what it was. It just, you checked the program, it said mystery session. So I text her on, I think it was Thursday night, being like, how should I prepare for this mystery session? As in trying to get some information out of it.
Messing with your head.
Yeah, yeah. I was like...
Good prep for UTA if you're doing it.
Yeah, so I needed a car. Between 6:30 and 9:30, I needed a car. That's all I knew.
In case your body breaks down.
Yeah. So I was gonna go for a run or missing either one. Turned out that it was Wildflower Garden Park Run, which is very hilly in St Ives. Have you ever done it?
I haven't, no.
No?
I've only done the flat ones, to be honest.
Okay, so have I until
path of least resistance.
Yeah. Dom, you haven't because you hadn't heard of it.
No, yeah, no.
Yeah, it was interesting. I got there, gone into the national park. Instantly, I thought of Lane Cove, and it was like sort of winding down into the car park. So I was like, this is going to be really hilly. It was good, but it was incredible. Well, you basically fly down a hill to start off with, and it's and then obviously got to come back up. Yeah. So I think it was about 1.5 K, and I already hadn't prepared for anything. Like I've been running around the bay for weeks and weeks and weeks, so I haven't done anything hilly. I think that was one of the things that I needed to work on, was getting strength in my legs from doing hills. But yeah, anyway, I think it was about 2 Ks in, and there was a little bit of trail section, and it was going in circles, and I got lost and just walking around. And I was looking around, and then so I have the worst at best of times, Dom. I don't have a good sense of direction. Like,
I'm shocking. It took me 30 minutes to get here when it should have taken me 5.
That's me all over. So, running in circles, and then I managed to get back on the course, but wasn't sure how I got back on there. Finished it incredibly hilly. But I got to go again next week apparently to do it properly. I was like, I'm gonna get lost, but anyway. That was, call it fun. Let's call it fun. Then today had 90 minutes easy, which was good, with a lot of the Delta crew just around the bay, so that was really fun. The long runs go a lot quicker when you've got a big group of people, that's for sure. You kind of just get absorbed in conversation and stuff like that. Which you do.
Good. It's one of the few sessions I can do by myself, a long run. Like, it's hard to do a proper, interval session with by yourself and motivate yourself to go quick and push yourself to that next level sort of thing. But yeah, long run I can sort of, sometimes I like company. Sometimes I like being able to just
zone out.
Zone out, just switch off and just let your mind wander, sort of thing. Yeah. Particularly if you've got a nice scenic route. The Bay Run's like a perfect example of that. One of the most scenic in Sydney, really. Yeah. Then it's just on your doorstep. So it's really good.
It's good. Yeah. I thought the charm of the Bay Run would wane. But it kind of doesn't, which is weird. Dom's like, bloody Bay Run, when you used to live here, you're like, no, we're not going to Bay Run again. And I'll be like, come on, it's fine, because his choice was Cooks River.
Okay.
Which is good, but
Cooks River I think is
underrated, is it?
Yeah, absolutely, bit of a hidden gem. No one really runs there too much, so
well, that's for me back home locally, because I'm with St George Athletics. Our sort of base is Scarborough Park. It's all like a grass, like a cross country sort of course, but you can get. They're undergoing construction at the moment, but I'm amazed at how quiet it always is at all times too. It's unless there's soccer training, AFL training going on at the fields, because it's just a massive sports hub, but it's like a 3K cross country loop. But you can actually cross a couple of roads and just add a couple of Ks to that. For a long run, just 3 laps of it's fine. And I like soft surface running as well. Yeah. But it's just, as you said, like one of those hidden gems where either people haven't discovered it, or people prefer just something on the coast where they got water views. I don't know what it is, but I love it as a training venue.
Yeah.
The only thing it's missing is hills, but you can't have everything.
That's all right. We can skip them every now and then. I think
we need to do more of them.
Yeah, we need to do more of them. I think the Bay Run is good in the more early, or during the week. During the week, it's fine. Yeah, but on the weekend,
it just gets packed.
Chockers.
Yeah, every man and their dog.
Literally, yeah, exactly. That's what you didn't like about it.
Yeah, too many people.
Too many people. Yeah, we'd be doing a long run session or something, and you're sort of and then the bikes come around.
Yeah.
Do they ring their bell at least? Or
no, go
straight through on the aero bars.
Yeah, they do. It's like, what are you doing?
Kids there, no worries.
Yeah.
Straight through.
Go to Centennial, please.
Yeah.
No, they're are they all right? Most of them.
Yeah, most of them are all right.
That's right. All right. No. Sorry.
Would you cycle around the bay? I don't know.
No. But I can understand why people there's a lot of arrogant cyclists out there.
Yeah.
I can understand why people don't like some of them.
Only the ones around the bay that try and hit you. That's all good. I'd like to say the disclaimer, because we've got a cyclist here.
It's yeah, just common courtesy as well when you're having a shared, like when you got kids. I'm assuming I rarely do bay run because it's not local for me, but I'm assuming you've got kids on bikes and dogs and everything.
Yeah.
Like it's literally for everyone.
Packed. It's packed. The only on joking aside, the only annoying ones are the ones that are like flying and on the bike lane, and then they sort of give you a bit of hassle because you're running around people. But if there's no one there and I'm jogging in the bike lane, you're kind of like, move.
Yeah. And there's not that many like elite kind of guys going there. I think that everyone kind of knows it's for the community sort of thing.
Yeah. But anyway, that's enough on that. That was my week. I'm getting back into sessions next week. Hopefully, my program gets uploaded every Sunday, so I'll be anxiously checking what I've got to do. Hopefully get down to Gore Hill on Tuesdays, and maybe even track Thursday evenings potentially, but we'll see. And then probably going to do Canberra as well.
Oh, right.
Because there's a half marathon.
Half, okay.
Yeah. That's coming up. That's on the 6th. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
But do you know anyone doing it? Is there anyone?
Not that I know of.
Yeah. Because it's a new one, I think.
Yeah.
Relatively.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But anyway.
Nice.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. What's your athletics background? How did you get started in sort of? What did you start with, running or?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, my parents are strong advocates, and I see the importance of, when you're young, just getting involved in pretty much any and every sport you can. So I did soccer, Oztag, touch, swimming, surf life saving, nippers, bit of basketball, literally everything. Running. Yeah, it's because, obviously the skills you develop from sport and the social element of it, like team sport involvement, I personally am a big advocate for early on, particularly for those, because you see a lot of young runners want to, because they get a bit of success in running, you see them want to just pursue that at too young an age, at 10 or 11 or even or 13 or 14 is probably too young to start specialising on any single discipline sport or individual sport, or even a team sport. Just try and have a go at everything and just see where your talents lie later on when you're in your late teens. But yeah, got a bit of involved in everything like that. I guess through a school pathway, it made it easy, like made it convenient to get involved and discover cross country. I remember first time I got taken, my dad took me down to Scarborough Park, which was our St George. They do a weekly cross country program, which is really good for kids as well because it's sort of that informal introduction. It's nothing too serious, nothing too competitive. They often do handicap races as well. Yeah. So that was a good introduction. I hated it though. Absolutely hated it.
Really?
First. Yeah, because it was sort of, Dad took me, I'm like, because I was playing soccer at the time, and I was like, why the hell do people do this for enjoyment? Who the hell would enjoy this? It's just putting yourself through pain voluntarily.
It was, yeah. I did cross country very few times when we were doing it ages ago. I think it was primary school. And I was like, this sucks. This actually sucks. I don't know. It was much later, but sorry to interrupt. I just thought.
Yeah. No, it's a good point because
it's terrible.
Yeah, it only took me a bit of success to start enjoying it. So when I was young, it was actually winning the school-based cross country. When I was 9, I won the state under 9s cross country, and that was sort of from there on. I was like, okay, let's really do this properly. Because I had that taste of success. If I didn't have that early success, I don't know if I would have developed my love for the sport, because a lot of people probably don't discover their love of it till they're at the age where they can make the choice that that's what they want to do. It's not something that their parents put them in and they just do it because out of convenience or because their friends do it. They truly want to do it. But I guess as I got older, when I had to choose what sports I wanted to do, I couldn't really decide between swimming and running and nippers as well. Surf life saving were my main sort of things. And then when I was 14, started getting to the point where I'm like, well, I have to sort of think about what I want to do, because it's demanding a lot of training. Like if you wanted to be a swimmer, you had to swim 10 times a week. If you wanted to be a runner, you had to run every day, sometimes double sessions, if you wanted to be a pure runner and be competitive at it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where triathlon was my decision, because I could still have that variety in my training and that be a sport in itself. And it was sort of like pretty high profile sport at the time in Australia and had a lot of success. And obviously the Olympic pathway was something as well that was that extra incentive or motivation to become involved in it. So in a nutshell, that's basically where it started. And yeah, at the moment I'm just sort of at that point, you know, with full-time work and everything, where the motivation does have to come from you. And I've sort of, since COVID, where there's been an absence of competition, I realised that for a lot of the time, I think I was motivated by competition, going overseas, those trips I had as well. But with the absence of that, yeah, as I said earlier, it's sort of just trying to experience the benefits of it for what it is, just to get out and enjoy the fresh air and enjoy, you know, the endorphins, the adrenaline rush that you get from running and exercising in general. So yeah, we'll see where we go from here, but I just love everything about all sport. I try to get involved in every aspect, not just as an athlete. I do a bit of commentary stuff as well, and I've been a bit in a coaching role and obviously a PE teacher. So sport is my life basically.
Yeah. What's the commentary? Yeah. What do you do?
With athletics. So yeah, during uni I did some volunteer hours with Athletics New South Wales at some of their events, and since then, got the opportunity to work at some pretty cool events athletics wise, and then beyond that with triathlon and things like that, worked at the nationals and I've just, it's always something I've been interested in, you know, sort of mimicking Bruce McAvaney and Ray Warren. It's a bit embarrassing, but it was sort of that I always had that passion since I was a young kid, just didn't really see an opportunity, but I guess I was proactive because I really did want to get involved in it. And then, really enjoy doing that and combining that with my competitive sport as well, or with competing. I enjoy that balance and having the best of both worlds at the moment. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So what sort of age did you start actually doing triathlon?
Yeah, so 14, like when I was in year 9, I think, it was sort of, because I always used to do this event, the Australia Day Aquathon down in Wollongong, which was a swim run event. There's not many of them around anymore, but it was a good taster into, or introduction into the world of multi-sport, and a lot of coaches and talent ID people down there looking at maybe potential nippers or swimmers and runners, like sort of hidden talent, to try and get them across to triathlon. I was connected from that event. I was connected with a coach, Mick Delamott, who was my triathlon coach for a long time, based in the Sutherland Shire. I was lucky that he was based in the Sutherland Shire, because there's not a lot of triathlon groups around, and we're starting to see the struggle with that at the moment of for young kids wanting to get into triathlon. It's hard in some areas of Sydney for them to find that solid group they're with. Very easy to find a run group, very easy to find a swim squad. Cycling, to an extent, depends on what club. Obviously, Ramwick Cycling Club have got a really good junior program in the eastern suburbs. But as if you want to pursue triathlon, there's some work to be done to get back to where the opportunities when I came through. And Mick Delamott, my coach, was a big reason for that, or a reason why that pathway existed, and why a lot of people pursued it for a long time, because he invested a lot of time into making sure that worked and the opportunities were there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what was the training like back when you started?
It's sort of, the emphasis was always on just making sure you get that balance and not overloading your body too much, because obviously training for 3 sports is a massive thing. And if you do too much too early, obviously stress fractures is a common injury in runners, common injury in triathletes too, or overdo it too quickly, too young. And that can ruin careers as well if you get too many overuse injuries. From a mental point of view, trying to come back constantly from them. But I guess Mick was always conservative. A lot of coaches are conservative now because they have the long-term view in mind of what the athletes could do when it matters the most, when they get to senior level competition. And even if they don't, at least they can train consistently, be motivated, and not have to sit on the sidelines from injury all the time. So I guess it was conservative. Still a lot of training with conservative because it's still 3 sports, right?
Yeah.
But I guess probably more I could overload more with the bike riding or the bike training because, that low impact. And swimming, I've always had a massive base. I was in the water since I was 6 months old. So swimming is something I already had a base for. So doing big Ks in the pool was not an issue.
Is it the most natural, swimming?
Swimming, it was my strength. It probably isn't right now because I haven't been super consistent with my swim training, but for a long time, because I had that massive base behind me, and because a lot of triathletes are, come from a running background, swimming was my strength relative to triathletes. For a while there, but looking to pick my running up, and that's a great thing about the sport is that you can make your own goals. There's so many events to choose from. What do you reckon? Every weekend, you've probably got at least two or three fun runs you could choose from if you really want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's no shortage of events that you can. There's almost too many to choose from sometimes.
Yeah. You just get carried away chasing event after event almost. But
yeah. Well, I'm one of those people. I like to race a lot. Some people are very selective, very. And some junior athletes are getting a bit like that, but I've always been super motivated by races. I love racing, and that's what I do it for in the end. I enjoy my training, but I also like the thrill of the adrenaline, the atmosphere surrounding races, the experience you get.
Yeah.
You can't get that from training unless you have a massive group all the time.
Yeah.
It's just trying to. If you got that big goal in mind, trying to work towards that and picking races that are going to work within that training program to set yourself up for that race. But if you don't have that big goal in mind, then just trying to race regularly, particularly when you're young, I think you really should just take every opportunity. As long as you're not doing 10K road races when you're 12 years old, things like that, obviously. But shorter. There's plenty of those shorter and kids dash fun runs sort of type things that are around and supporting most big community fun run events as well. So love racing.
Yeah, we don't do it enough. When you were young, what did the actual structure look like? Can you remember what your weeks were sort of like?
Training.
Yeah.
Well, I'd probably at my peak, like when I was training the most for triathlon, I would probably say cycling would probably get up to 300k a week at my most. Running, I've probably never done a run week more than 70k ever. Just because when I was training the most, it was triathlon focused. So I sort of didn't get the time, or just on the conservative side, as I said, to try and prevent injury. And then swimming, 4 to 5 times a week. And most sessions would be, between 4 and 5K, or maybe 3K if it's a recovery session. But 3 to 5K.
Yeah.
For each of those swim sessions, 4 to 5 times a week. So it's a lot of training when you add it all up. Yeah. And you do need to commit a lot of time and energy to it. So I guess that's what it was like at my peak. But early on with my triathlon, it was sort of skills focused on the bike. Like I wasn't getting out on the road. I was just probably doing twice a week. We had like a skill session. We got a cycle track at home at Sutherland that's closed circuit that's really good for beginners, just to pick up the skills of cycling. Not a lot of mileage, more just skill based for that. Running, I sort of did my own running, but low mileage, and swimming with my squad. And the squad's good because it has like surf club people, pure swimmers, triathletes, sort of a mix of different motivations or different people with different goals that are in the same squad. So it's a tough task actually for the coach to try and cater for everyone really, when sometimes our squad, because it's massive, it gets up to, I think at its peak it got 80 or 90 at one time, like when you include masters, juniors, like in 5 or 6 lanes sort of thing. So, yeah, pretty hectic.
Yeah. And the surf lifesaving, how did that kind of all sort of come about, and are you still doing that, or how's it sort of progressed?
I love the surf club mainly because of the social element. It's hard to let go of something like that when it's been such a big part of your life. A lot of people come into the surf club late. I'm in Cronulla Surf Club. I've been with it since the under 6s as a little nipper. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's really inclusive and there is something for everyone, even if you're not someone who's competitive and want to get involved in that. The social aspect of it is huge. And for those people who don't see themselves pursuing a really competitive pathway or an elite or Olympic pathway in a sport, then you still get the competitive nature and the prestige, I guess, from your club and the recognition from your club from doing really well in the surf club. But it's just a lower pressure environment, I guess. Not that any sport wants to create a high pressure environment for anyone, but just the atmosphere of it, just the fact that you're at the beach. Like for example, the beach sprinters and the flaggers, like they play Oz Day, they do all these other things as well. They get involved in the surf club. They probably don't want to commit the time on the track to becoming an elite sprinter necessarily. Some of them do both, don't get me wrong, but a lot of them would be there as well because they want to be competitive and they still want to do the training, but they want to feel like they've got some sort of success without having to basically make it full time or make it all consuming and think about training, think about racing, every minute of every day. And the Australian Championships, or the Aussies as it's known, is sort of the culmination of the season. It's always an epic vibe up there, 5,000 plus competitors, on a week on the Gold Coast. You can imagine what goes on, particularly after the event. Great festival and great sort of atmosphere. And everyone gets behind each other as well. It's sort of something that I've tried to think like with athletics, that club culture that exists in surf club, it'd be great to have that and to somehow simulate that or bring that across to athletics, because in some ways it is a selfish sport for obvious reasons, individual sport. But trying to get that team based or that team focused, team first mentality back into it, to realise you're part of something bigger, similar to what US do with the college system. I think that'll keep a lot of people in the sport, particularly focusing on athletics here. Like recreational running is a different thing. We'll see where we go with that. I think steps are definitely being made to do that, but if we want to keep young people in the sport, particularly when I said they get to that age where they're not forced to do it anymore, they are making their own choices. We want them to make those choices because, from the PE teacher and me, I just want to see people active for their whole lives. So even if they don't want to be competitive, and I feel like a lot of people think that if you don't, what's the point of doing this? What's the big point of still being a runner unless I'm at the top level? Like if you've had that junior success, it's easy to fall into that mentality, I think. But I've seen a few people who, and I'm glad to see it, that did get that success as a junior and maybe not as elite as an open athlete, but still training, still doing fun runs, still doing all that stuff, because there is always something for everyone. That's why it's such an inclusive sport.
Yeah,
definitely.
What's it like being a PE teacher?
PE teacher, ups and downs, I tell you. I come into class and I'm there with them. Like literally the other day, I went, righto, who's keen for volleyball? And I get this. I said, you guys, you got to match my energy here. Who's keen for volleyball? And got a slightly more enthusiastic response, but I guess it's good when the kids get into it. It's great, and you know, you definitely feel like you make an impact on some kids because it's just making them feel more confident, more skilled in a variety of different sports, and just basically learn to love physical activity. Obviously with technology, it's sort of makes it harder to compete with that, and kids are probably not as physically active as what they once were, but it's a good job in that every single day is different. It's tough and it's emotionally exhausting, and it makes it hard to switch off because of the demands, physical and mental demands on teachers now, but it's definitely rewarding, and you can see the impact you have on kids. You're not going to impact every kid, but I'm lucky. I work at a school with really good support, really good staff. Kids are, even though their motivation might be up and down, they're actually really nice, genuine kids. So, and that's the main thing you want as well. Yeah. Just to try and develop them into good young people, and from my point of view, get them involved in sport. I guess I have idealistic expectations as well. Like I came in there, you know, at the end of uni saying, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to do all these things. And I've sort of had to be a bit more of a realist as well, and thinking, hang on, maybe not everyone loves fitness as much as me. Not everyone loves sport as much as me. I've got to accept that.
It seems like a lot of kids do love sport though. Like I can remember at school, you ask like someone, what's your favourite thing to do at school? And they say, lunchtime. And they say, what's your favourite subject?
Home time.
Yeah. And they'd say PE usually. So
yeah. I think it's probably shifting a bit more, changing a bit since we went to school, but yeah, definitely sport is. It's that outlet for them as well. If they're sitting in the classroom for a lot of periods of the day, obviously I teach the theory side as well, the health side, but when you do have them out for prac, I think they appreciate that time to, you know, be kids, and it's sort of that playtime for them, structured, organised play where they can develop their confidence and skills in a non-threatening environment, which, you know, they don't always get the opportunity to, and to discover and try new things that they probably never would have tried outside of school, because of whatever the barrier might be, whether it's time or the parents not being able to get them there, or cost, whatever the barrier is in schools. It's sort of, particularly because I work in a state system, then it's it gives that equal opportunity to everyone. And you can see the difference a lot of the time with kids' confidence level as you move through the year. But yeah, it is exhausting. I'll be honest, it is exhausting some days.
Do you reckon you learnt like anything about your sport in studying PE to become a teacher, and the content kind of behind it, or?
I probably learned, because, you know, some things we do at uni are sort of coaching oriented, because it was a PE health phys ed degree. I guess the main thing is how to motivate different personalities, motivate different individuals, and realise that when a kid or a student's behaving a certain way, then there's a lot of underlying reasons why that might be, or why is this kid disengaged, I guess, and how do you get the best out of them? How do you understand what's going on? How do you get the best out of them in different circumstances? Because there are, and more so now than ever, there's so many diverse needs and backgrounds that kids come from, whether it's home life, there's a lot of things going on at home that are preventing or impacting their mood, impacting their motivation, and we've got to deal with that and sort of try to get the best out of them and help them have that safe space at school, which is also a big thing. I guess understanding kids and how they learn is probably the biggest thing. At uni, obviously you get how to structure lessons and things, you know, how to create drills and modified games that differentiated so you suit kids of different abilities, because obviously, you know, you got your kids who play rep soccer and your kids who never touched a ball in their life in the same class, because it's not graded in PE. So it's one of those things where trying to cater for every one of them is a challenge, but definitely achievable. And it's through experience more than anything. Like, you can only get so much out of your degree that I learnt more on my 2 weeks of prac than I did in 6 months at uni, because you're forced to learn on the job. This is what it is, you know. You gotta survive there and try to think on your feet a lot.
What was the variant? What did the 2 weeks teach you versus what did you think was drastically different?
Well, you just reflecting on like the tiniest thing, that if you're not 100% prepared when you're not experienced, then, or you're not super confident in what you're delivering, then the kids pick up on that. And, you know, the whole lesson can be derailed because of one thing you did wrong, or how you start the lesson a bit late, or you didn't engage them straight away, or or it was too challenging or too easy, because kids get bored when it's too hard. They also get bored when it's too easy. So there's a lot of things you need to think about, really. But you only do it through experience, because you think, like, if you feel at the end like that was a rubbish lesson, then that's when you're forced to think, well, I don't really want to feel like that again. How do I improve? Whereas it's sort of, when you're in a lecture theatre, you're just sort of passively listening and going, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Now I see, because sometimes I go to Marrickville Library and you see the kids watching the lecture and they're just on their phone.
Oh,
you know,
it's that thing of like, it's amazing, isn't it? Like even when we're beyond school and we're doing something we're interested in, like at lectures, because we're not actively engaged in it a lot. Some lecturers are really good, but because we're not actively engaged in it and they're not having that discussion, they're just talking to us, it's easy to be disengaged. So I guess that's where you think, as a teacher, don't just talk to the kids, to actually try to involve them as much as possible and ask questions and get them standing up and moving different parts of the room, doing different things. And that's the other challenge. What works with one class perfectly can completely fail and blow up in your face with another class at the other end.
With different kids and different dynamics.
Yeah, well, different, you know, if they're respectful and responsible enough to have a intellectual discussion, as opposed to, you know, others. I'll leave it at others.
You know who you are.
If you're listening.
So how do you how do you deal with the different... I imagine you can't teach how to deal with different personalities. Like, as in, at uni, you'd probably get there and figure out, oh, this kid's kind of like this.
Experience. Like you learn the theory at uni.
What do they teach you? Like,
well, stages of development. You know, different. You know, how the brain develops at different life stages and how kids develop at different rates and all that sort of thing. And activating prior knowledge. So when a kid knows something, you tap into that. Try to get them to see the significance or relevance of what you're teaching them, because if they see the relevance, then they're able to connect to their prior knowledge. So there's all sort of research around that, on how to remember, how kids remember information, learning styles as well. Everyone's tends to be more like hands-on kinesthetic or a visual learner, rather than just, you know, writing down things or just being spoken to. Having multimodal, so you have images or visual stimulus, you have your written stuff whilst you're speaking as well, just to try and cater for all those things, because you'll have different learning needs as well. Kids that need learning support in your class, and then at prac with PE, it's a whole different ball game again, you know. So, and then if a kid's injured, it's a whole Yeah, there's a lot to it. If you want to do it properly, and you want to feel like you're doing a good job, then there's a lot to it.
Yeah. It sounds like it. Jeez.
Yeah.
What do we remember from PE? God,
that's the thing. Like, when I went to school, I'm like, oh, PE teacher, how hard could it be?
Yeah.
But, and that's what they think.
It's quite difficult.
That's a thing, and I cop it all the time from people I work with. Those who can't teach, those who can't teach gym. Like, yeah, good on you. You take this class. See how you go.
Yeah, I can remember like year 11 and year 12 PE was actually pretty interesting. I thought, compared to like the rest of it, like and I think that, like you said before, that sort of prior learning and engaging that, like being a runner, I was kind of interested in.
Well, actually, I probably do it with my seniors more than anything because, you know, we hammer into them that you've got to use specific examples for any written question. And so they're talking about, say we're talking about biomechanical principles, you know, fluid mechanics or something, and they talk about synchronized swimming. I'm like, why are you talking about synchronized swimming? How much experience have you got in that? So tell me something that you actually know something about already.
Yeah.
So then they can see the relevance of it. Like I got a lot of rugby league sort of kids in the class, and yeah, it's just trying to get them to realize, you know, you already know a lot of this stuff. This is just said in a fancy way, and you just need to be able to articulate it and go in the enough depth. You know it already from the sports you do on the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so you're 100% right with that.
But yeah, I felt like learning the theory behind, like, I don't know, the different energy systems or whatever was like interesting. Yeah.
Well, we as runners, as athletes, see it because it's our everyday. Like, I was so interested in all that because it was a big part of my life. You know, if you're involved in sport, it'd be hard to see why you wouldn't be engaged in that sort of thing. But yeah,
that's true. I remember when Dom, you recommended a book when I started training for marathon, and it goes into like a lot of the different energy systems, and that was when I first got my head around how to train the different systems as well.
You become more informed with your own training as well. So you're not just passively listening to a coach. You're actually able to question what you're doing. And maybe think or suggest things to them, and they think, yeah, you know what, fair enough, because it's supposed to be that two-sided conversation when you have a coach as well. It's not supposed to be do as I say and just do it without understanding why. If you're a kid, you sort of accept it, but you know, at our age, it's, you know, if you think, hang on, what's the reason doing that? Either ask a question or suggest something and think, and just becoming more informed so you know that you're getting the best out of yourself. Because I never understood the concept of why would you have an easy day? Like, what's the point of an easy day? You know, now you understand the energy systems and you know how it takes your body a certain time to recover to get those physiological adaptations to actually get fitter. Then you realize, and you see a lot of people quoted, a lot of elite athletes saying, you know, recovery is that thing that separates the competitive from the elite, because they don't value or they don't put as much emphasis on the recovery because they think it's wasted time. They think they're going to get the benefits from training, but they're not going to get those adaptations to get fitter after, you know, a hard session or a hard block of training without that appropriate rest time. It's not just sitting down on the couch. It's that massage. It's you know, getting your 8 to 10 hours sleep and your hydration, that all contributing to recovery.
You're right. I remember before I knew what easy was, I'd kind of think, it's fine, I can just do, you know, like, don't worry about that. It's so funny how maybe it's just me, you fall into the trap of thinking you know better until you actually find out more information. I'm just like, nah, I won't train like that.
But again, like it was like when we were talking before about eating and nutrition, and it's you don't want it to become that chore as well. You still want to be able to do what you need to do, but have those times where you can, you know, sort of relax a little bit and not be as strict with your eating habits.
For sure. I think
indulge in a bit of
chocolate,
bit of takeaway, a bit of chocolate, whatever your go-to is.
I'm glad I learned, like, put a bit of emphasis on learning the specifics before I got a coach, because I feel like when Sally programs things, at least I can have a little bit of information around it and sort of think, oh, this makes sense because we're doing threshold this day. And if I didn't do that before, I'd kind of just be like, okay. Even though I am like, okay, because obviously I trust what...
but trust is important,
but I understand, okay, this makes sense. And it was good seeing the difference in what I was doing before to what I got programmed, and then see the improvement and be like, okay, that makes sense. We were varying it, doing bigger sessions, all these sorts of things. So it kind of makes sense. But yeah, it is interesting, actually. That's the biggest thing I struggled with at uni, was not seeing the relevance to what I was studying, because I had no practical experience. So I did IT, and I was, you're in all these classes, and it's like, oh, this is terrible. I don't like it. But then I got into industry, in telco, for example, and I got drawn back into it because I understood, like, oh no, this information is really valuable.
Because you probably would have invested more time if they made it clear what the relevance of at the time when you
were... Well, yeah, I'm like, no, this is actually, like, that's a router, and this does this, and it makes sense because when you're working, that's relevant information. So, it's fascinating. But I don't know, you're right, like, I definitely learned more working in sales at JB Hi-Fi, like in a month, than I did in my whole. And it was like, it's not even, do you know what I mean? Because I learned how to talk to people. I learned how to ask questions.
It's all those soft skills as well that you can do with everything.
So it's interesting.
Well, there's not many jobs at the moment you can get away with, not being able to interact or communicate effectively, or understanding that social or emotional intelligence that people take for granted as well. Like, there's not many jobs where you can just sit at a desk and never talk to people.
No.
Like, what job involves that?
That's what I was hoping for at uni, because that's what I was being prepared for. It's like, I don't know. It's hard as well because people, like, I was pretty shy and, like, not wanting to interact, but you really have to engage with your tutes and stuff. I don't know what it's like. I studied a while ago. I imagine it's pretty similar though.
Oh, it would be.
Yeah. But anyway, training. I'm curious what your, at your sort of peak training for triathlon, what's the actual cycling training like? Because I just don't know. I don't have any insight into it.
Well, I guess it depends on the time of year you're in. Obviously, when you're in your base phase, or when you're just trying to build that aerobic base, you're just ticking the legs over. It's literally just all aerobic. The efforts you might do might be hill reps. And when I say hill reps, it's sort of like 8 to 10 minute climbs at just tempo, low gear. So hard gear, but low cadence. So you're just trying to build that glute quad strength, because that strength will form the basis of when you want to do your power work, which you can't have power without strength. So that's sort of part of that base phase, but it's predominantly aerobic. It's like our rides, like our long ride would be 90 to 100 Ks. That was our sort of Sunday morning long ride. The rest of the other ones were sort of anywhere between, rarely would go out for less than an hour ride, less than 30 Ks. That was sort of a short ride. But the rest of the week was between 1 or 2 hour rides, aerobic during that base phase. Then when it started to come more towards competition season, you'd start to do some efforts, whether it's 4 minutes on at sort of race tempo, 1 minute off, depending on what sort of race it is. We tried to mimic the demands of the course, because I was doing draft legal racing. Different courses have different levels of intensity. So sometimes it won't just be steady state. Well, a lot of times in draft, it won't just be steady state, because it's technical. You need to surge a lot. You spike the heart rate, you come back down. You spike the heart rate, come back down. Yeah. Not really like running at all, where people, their objective, unless you're a 1500 or middle distance runner, where the surges come back down. A lot of people try to go for time. So they're trying to do the even, keep that heart rate steady and keep it even for as long as possible. But the reality of cycling is, if you're just trying to stay with the pack, you're not going to keep steady state and go off the front and cop the win and do extra work that way. You want to just sit in, and then when the spike or the surge comes, being able to go to that different energy system, being able to put the power through, get lactic for a bit, and then go back to race pace after being lactic. So we'd sort of look at the course, look at where the hills are, look at where the U-turns are, and try to simulate sessions that met the demands of that course. So if we say we had, sometimes we think there's 32 10 to 15 second power spikes in a 20k bike leg, based on the amount of corners there were, or where we thought the surges, we'd have to get out and surge. We'd do that in training. We 15 seconds on, then 45 seconds back to either tempo or race pace. Spike it again, bring it back, spike it again. And try to go a little bit beyond what you would do in a race, so that you're physiologically ready, you're mentally confident that you can cope with those demands. And I miss the mark a lot as well, because bikes that thing that's my weakness and the new thing to me. But there's been a few times that when it does pay off, when you do see the relevance and you reap the rewards, and you do stay with that pack, and you do feel comfortable so that you can run feeling relatively fresh, then it's always a good feeling. So yeah, it depends on what time of the season. As I said, I would do up to 300k, obviously, because I was doing when I was at my peak training, I was balancing uni as well, but I was lucky that my uni degree didn't have a hell of a lot of contact hours when you compare it to engineering or law or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sort of depended on what time of the year you're in, but but wouldn't do any more than 2 hard sessions, I guess, in that week. The rest were just sort of filling easy rides, just getting those, or conditioning the legs with that aerobic base. And similar to running, like you have those fill-in runs, either side of your track or your effort sessions. Similar sort of concept.
What energy systems do you have? Is it differ when you're cycling in terms of zone? How do you gauge it?
Well, I guess because 20k ride is just under 30 minutes normally. So if you think of it like a 10k or just under 10k, but in a 10k, you're not going to be doing all those power spikes where you're going to feel lactic.
Yeah.
People are not going to really put surges on. Even in a tactical 10k, they're not going to really put surges on until the second half of the race. The first half is, whereas it's a lot different cycling in a draft legal environment. Yeah. Because you're trying to break away from a pack. There's always the strongest cyclists, the weaker runners, who are trying to break away. And the reason where they do that is where they are more likely to do it. They're not going to do it on a long stretch of road. They're going to do it out of a U-turn, up a hill, more technical section, through a narrow part where it strings out, so people have to work hard to get back on, hopefully get to the point where they've burned all their matches and they can't, their lactic.
They've
got too much lactic built up to be able to go again and again.
So it gets real tactical.
Yeah, it's really tactical.
Yeah.
It's really tactical.
Yeah.
That's why people look at people's run times off the bike and go, geez, that was a bit average. But if you're not there and you don't actually see how the race played out, you don't really know how the quality of that run, what it was like.
Yeah.
So there's so many variables. It's amazing, and until you do it, you really develop an appreciation for how dynamic and how that's why the race results often change a lot in triathlon compared to running, because where the swim is. Are you doing a beach start? Is it choppy? Is it flat lake, or is it choppy surf? Suits different people. What's the bike like? Is it flat, long, straight road, not very technical? Suits a certain type of cyclist. Who's in the race? Who's around that person's ability and who can work together in a pack? Will that bring the weaker cyclists up or not? There's all these things that come into it. And then ultimately affecting what level of fatigue you are at the start of the run. Because often you'll see the fresh runner, someone who's got a minute quicker 5k PB fresh, if they're got a deficiency or a lack of skill on the bike, then they will have to work a lot harder, and all of a sudden someone who's a minute slower over 5k fresh will beat them on the run because they've either been worked smarter and been more tactical, or are more technically capable or better in that lactic acid system or that anaerobic zone during those 10, 15 second power spikes that happen on a technical bike course. So there's a lot to it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah. So what are the actual race distances? Because this is the level of my knowledge about triathlon.
Most of my distances, most of mine was sprint distance, so 750 swim, 20k bike, 5k run.
Yeah.
And also did
Olympic.
What's traditionally Olympic distance, but there's a whole debate on whether it will stay.
Oh, really?
So they just call it standard distance now. So it's double. So 1,500 swim, 40k bike, and 10k run.
Right. Okay.
So,
what do you run off the bike? Like, what's
my best?
Yeah.
For 5k, I think on a true 5k, there's been a couple of quick runs that have been short. So I'm probably like a 15:40ish, a 5k off.
That's wild.
That's nuts.
Yeah, but that was sort of not too taxing bike legs, so I was able to go pretty close to fresh, or what I would run fresh. There's been a couple of, I'd like to claim it, but a couple of sub 15s, but they're short, and everyone's gone quick. So
it's tough though. Like I've done one sprint distance triathlon a long time ago. And,
when was that?
First year out of school.
Okay. A while ago.
Yeah, me and my friend Chris Best, he got right into it. And I was like an 18-minute 5k guy, and I ran 22 minutes off the bike or something like that. And
the first one you do, it's like, what the hell?
Yeah. It's just so hard. Yeah.
It's a horrible feeling first up if you haven't sort of done sessions. And brick sessions are another thing to try and teach your legs on how to run fatigue. Because you sort of run different as well. Like your leg speed, you're more reliant on leg speed rather than some people are more rely on their power. It helps the new super shoes now because
I can imagine.
Efficient. So you don't have to put as much power through the ground to get that return. So technology definitely helps there. But
it's weird though. Like you can't really compare it to anything in running because
you can't. Not even cross country. You think like a good cross country runner should be good running off the bike, but it's really there's more to it than that. It's not just strength based running.
There's a proper adaptation to coming straight off.
It's very specialised, very specific.
Different muscles on the bike.
And a lot of people think it's more just about getting stronger and smarter on the bike rather than just doing more runs off the bike as well. Some people just think, let's just do more brick sessions, but a lot of the time it's the reason your run's not good is because you're not as strong on the bike. Get stronger on the bike, get better in that lactic acid system, then you're fresher so you can run closer to your 5k PB on the track.
Yeah, right.
So
makes sense.
You get confused mixing the two up, essentially.
Did you do much brick stuff or?
Did a bit. Again, that's something that's more closer to competition season or closer to races that you do. You wouldn't do it all year round because you've got a different focus, but definitely something. And I like to do just a lot of local, whether it's a club race or something like that as my brick session, just because it's sort of a low key environment just to be able to try different things. And sometimes like in our races, they'll normally in a 5k run straight off the bike, they'll absolutely bolt it for a K just to try and even put more lactic in people and then slow right down into a sort of almost a tempo and hopefully broken some people. So that's what you practice. You'd simulate those things, just hammer it for a K, even if it hurts, knowing that it's going to become more comfortable later. And sometimes it's a weird thing because you actually you feel like your running legs come back later in the race, like if you're conditioned right. Yeah. So sometimes the first K feels the worst because you're going from cycling legs to running legs, and you're using slightly different muscle groups as well, in trying to switch your glutes on or recruit glutes, which is sort of fatigues because it's a bigger muscle group, it takes longer to fatigue. That's always a challenge as well. Yeah.
So what were their run sessions like typically in some of your
the run sessions for triathlete would be very similar to a run session for 6-1K, your staple bread and butter sort of stuff. Again, close to competition season, you'll do things and similar. Depends what you're training for. If you're training for something on the track where you'll want to do that speed work as well. And just in case it gets to the point where you need to break your rhythm, because it's not all rhythm running in triathlon, you'll do like, try to get yourself a bit lactic, do a 400 at sort of, you know, your 800 to 1500 pace, which is pretty getting to lactic, and then go into a mild tempo or something, and then spiking, like just doing intervals like that where you break it up. Depending on what you expect of that race. If you're doing a 10k and just keeping even pace, maybe a descend or a pyramid, it changes depending on where your strengths lie and what time of season you're in as well, and what you're coming up, whether it's a sprint or a standard distance. If you're a standard distance, you're sort of doing more steady state, trying to just hold that tempo or maybe get a little bit quick with your reps towards the back end. Because that's something that it's normally whoever's second half of the race is closest to their first half is normally wins the race, because normally everyone can go a pretty similar tempo the first 2-3k, but once it hits the wall, it depends on who's able to hold their form under pressure, who's able to sort of withstand that fatigue the longest, and be efficient towards the back end. And that's what you focus on in your training, just trying to hold your form so that when you hit the wall, you don't go from 3-minute Ks to 4-minute Ks. You might go from 3-minute Ks to 3:30. So you're not hitting the wall as drastically.
Yeah.
So you might not lose 20 positions. You might lose just a few.
Yeah. It's interesting because like the sprint distance takes like an hour would be like at a pretty elite time.
Yeah, just under an hour or draft league, because the bike's a lot quicker. Yeah, you're getting closer to early 50s because the bike is dramatically a lot quicker.
Yeah. And then
depending
like
on the course as well.
2 hours or so for the standard. Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't feel that long though, because your mind's always occupied. It's not like running where if you're doing a steady state, like that 10k on the track we did, it feels like forever, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
But it's because of the environment you're in. You're just trying to click over the laps and try to do consistent pace. Whereas if you're focusing just on it's a testament to the importance of just breaking things down into segments just for your own mental sanity, I guess, during a longer race. Just focusing on this next couple of K, right, or just focusing on this next lap, whatever it is, because there's so many variables and so many changes, pace changes, whatever it is, it makes it easy to keep your mind active, so it doesn't feel like it's as long. I don't know. It doesn't feel like eternity for some reason.
Because like I guess like an hour or 50 minutes or so, that's kind of getting towards like a half marathon kind of equivalent.
Yeah, like it's you because like swimming, because you're doing 3 legs, I guess. I don't know, but like when you think of it, like that's a long time to be, you know, getting your heart rate at the top of your aerobic zone, which is essentially what you're doing on average. It's a long time to do that. But because I never you know, put my head around doing a marathon, for example, but you're not far off it with an Olympic distance triathlon in time, like length of time you're out on the course.
But also I think about doing a 5k and it's like tough, really tough, but you would be going, I imagine, into that same zone on the swim and the bike, and then you got to run a fast 5k. So it's like, probably very painful. It's
I guess I've been lucky as well, like the swim being my strength. I've always sort of been able to be fairly aerobic in a swim, compared to some others who have their weakness in the swim, who are just trying to survive and just stay in contact with the group, so they've got a pack to ride with. I've been lucky in that way that the swims sort of just get it done. So it's just been a bike run race. Like as long as you don't do anything stupid and mess it up completely. Might not be the same now. I've got to get my swim Ks back in to be able to get back to that level, but
it's all right. Summer's coming.
Summer is coming. Motivation. Will it be coming?
Do you follow any of the Ironman stuff, or like you into it at all?
Yeah, I follow it a bit, mainly because I've raced a lot of those guys coming through, and I follow it a bit, not religiously, I must admit, because it's one of those things. It's hard because it's not on free to air. It's not convenient to follow all the time. Like a lot of it's just a streaming platform. Like Triathlon Live is where the World Triathlon Series or the World Championship Series is broadcast. But I follow, because I'm on all the socials. I see all the updates and I know what's coming up with major events and the Ironman stuff. The long course, like they've just had Hawaii, and that's a whole nother thing mentally. Trying to get your head around that. Couldn't do that.
What are they running? They smashed. There was a record got smashed, didn't it?
Yeah, they broke the record. The two Norwegians at the front.
It was an insane. What was the marathon? I remember someone from work was telling me the marathon was like in the heat. I don't know what it was. It was like a 2:35.
Yeah,
2:36, and I'm like, how could you after? Yeah, crazy. But they the Norwegians smashed the record.
Yeah, there's so a guy from down my area, Craig Alexander, who's won it. Won it 3 times, is sort of good training partner sometimes with running, and he's like, he was the GOAT, but he admits now, like with this new era coming through, he's just like, the competition's just gone to another level. Like it's just like, because all these short course guys who've got the speed and now starting to get the mileage in their legs to be able to do it, and they've got mental toughness. Like those Norwegians, that Christian Blumenfeld is the Olympic champion from Tokyo. Just so gutsy, like incredible. Like talk about desire or the want that will to win. It's amazing watching how much pain they're happy to put up with for such a long time. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to get my head around how that would work, but can't do it. No desire to.
Particularly, not anywhere in the near future. I'd consider doing just a ticket off as sort of a bucket list. Done an Ironman. Yeah. But that's about it. Because there's such a long stretch of road, and they call it the lava fields, a tough period where it just gets ridiculously hot and humid, and there's no even wind chill to cool you down. Again, not from experience, from what they've told. But yeah, it's incredible for them to be able to mentally get through that period. Imagine Ned, what's his last?
Brockman. Yeah.
I can imagine he would have had a few of those moments in his 4,000 kilometre journey across the country. If he doesn't get Australian of the Year, then I'm leaving the country. I'm kidding. I love it too.
We were talking about that. That's a Ironman. Yes, that's in its own sort of something. I don't know. It's not.
There's the other bloke.
It's ridiculous.
It's a big run mileage that he did every day for 40 days. A big weekly run mileage.
I know. That's
every day.
It's insane.
Because someone from the outside who doesn't run would be like, that's crazy. But then every single runner is like, that's like exact same response.
Yeah.
It's, wow.
Yeah, you know when people say, oh, that's crazy, you do
100Ks a week, yeah.
Or whatever it is.
Whatever it is, yeah.
They think everything's crazy. But I know people like I went to school with, there's a couple of people I went to school with who are now, not the most active people in school, but now have started to get right into running, and they're doing more Ks than me, and their Strava's coming up on their Insta stories. I'm going, bloody hell, I need to pick up my act here. I'm looking a bit lazy. Yeah, but it's good to see like people experiencing, getting into running, and realizing that something that you don't have to have a lot of natural talent for. You can start from pretty much anywhere and be half decent with a big work ethic, can't you?
Yeah, I think it takes you a long way for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Particularly like those longer distances.
Yeah.
Maybe over 1,500 it's a bit hard, but like 10Ks or 5Ks even plus, really, it's there's a lot of people like with any sort of aerobic capacity whatsoever. Like if you put a bit of work in, consistent specific work, then you can do some pretty cool things.
Yeah, for sure. Last thing I was curious about, from a training perspective is what your diet was like when you were training. Was it pretty specific or something you thought about?
I've never thought too hard about diet, but there was one point where I went to see a dietitian because part of the elite athlete program at Sydney Uni, like they gave us all these free access to all these support services, one of which is a dietitian.
Yep.
I never really used them. I thought, well, my last year uni, I may as well use it, see what they have to say about my typical week, because I've had my coach and a few others saying, are you like my parents saying I eat too much purely because the grocery bill's like ridiculously high, and apparently I eat 95% of it, which is a massive exaggeration, but anyway.
Yeah, it's funny. I moved out from my girlfriend and she said the grocery bill's gone down significantly. Yeah.
Dad calls me a scavenger, but anyway.
Yeah, it's one of those things though. I haven't really put too much thought into it, but she basically said if anything I should be having more. Like I thought I was eating a lot. So like some days, like when I was training 3 times a day, I would like have 3 lots of 5 Weet-Bix. And and every time I tell people that, they're like, "The hell, you're insane." But I've never looked any different. Like my builds always stay the same. Like because if anything, I'm not eating enough. Like I've always considered myself, and other people think of me as a big eater, but for the amount of training you do, you'd be surprised at how much kilojoules you're actually burning when you exercise. Obviously it's not just length of time, but the intensity level as well. Higher intensity, then you're depleting more. But yeah, like I said what I think, and I said I've been told I've had way too much milk in the day. I eat too much bread. And this is like, the only thing is, I would say, one, I think you actually need a little bit more. And 2, like maybe the only thing would be just to replace some of those food sources with a different food source from that same nutrient group. So instead of bread, actually having pasta for lunch or something, a different type of carbs, rather than just having
bread,
15 slices of bread in a day or whatever it is. So yeah, that's the only time I've really seen a dietitian. But yeah, it'd be good to revisit that as well, considering I'm not training as much as what I was during uni, just to see where my current eating, because I've noticed I am eating less, still eat a fair bit, but eating less than what I was when I was training at my peak in terms of the hours and mileage done across the 3 sports. So yeah, definitely worthwhile investment as well, I think. All those little things. If you're looking to get from the competitive to the elite level, or you think that your training is only you can't really get much more out of your training, then yeah, focus on that, on nutrition, massage, hydration, rest, recovery, just all those things that people neglect quite often. Because that could be the difference in getting that next level, that next bit out of yourself.
What about gym? Are you much of a
I've gone through periods of motivation and not like, I've always done stuff that's convenient. I've never, because of the nature of my sport, I don't need to be lifting, I don't need to be powerlifting or doing anything heavy. I just need to be doing sort of muscular endurance stuff, localized strength work or functional strength work, but it's with sort of free weights at max, that's it. My physio's tried to build me up to the point where I just haven't been disciplined enough, I'll be completely honest, with actually doing it consistently. And that's the thing, I know it's important and I know I should be doing it, but I neglect it. I just
Does that sound familiar though?
It's amazing though, because it's a dip. Yeah, because my coach used to drill it into me all the time and just say that this is the step to injury prevention and how you get from that competitive to elite level, and this is how I can up your mileage, because if you are functionally strong, and I'm confident that, because part of it is not just building strength, it's injury prevention, because you move better mechanically. So if you're able to do that and withstand that amount of force and have those good movement patterns, then you're able to withstand more impact. You can do more Ks in the run without that risk of injury because you move well, right? You're not using muscles that you or sort of smaller muscles, or not overloading smaller muscles when you should be recruiting your glutes the whole time. You're not, even with proprioception or the way your foot lands the ground, little things like that, a lot of the things, the cause of it is insufficient strength in your glutes or some of those major muscle groups. So yeah, I know it's important. I need to get better at it.
I guess the other one is like gear. I think triathlon's a pretty gear heavy sport.
Yeah, it is.
What are you
very
rolling around with at the moment? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my bike's collecting dust at the moment. Cervelo. Got a Cervelo S3, which is sort of a reliable bike, sort of $4 or $5 grand, but it's
that's not too bad for bikes.
No, it's not too bad, but it's something. It's pretty durable and it does the job for my level of racing.
Yeah,
I'm not, because time trial bikes, which you can use on non-drafting, which are the really aerodynamic looking frames, with the time trial bars out the front and the aerodynamic helmets as well. Some people get with that. Obviously, that's a lot more expensive. Some of them are like 20 grand. Those bikes.
Wow.
That's probably a main expense, but it's also the ongoing bike. It's all to do with the bike, so the equipment or the maintenance costs, I guess, of servicing it because they say you should service it every 4 to 6 months, but if you ride regularly, you should service it every 3. If you're doing a fair few Ks. That's probably the main expense, and also triathlon. There's not a lot of local races, so you're always traveling. You're always going interstate, and obviously there's a lot of expenses with that. Flights, accommodation, everything to do with that. Whereas running, there's a lot of major running events that you can do in Sydney, so you're not traveling for a lot of races really, unless you get to the really elite level. Extra baggage costs and things like that. Entry fees are quite big for triathlon. So like now the cheapest you can get for a sprint distance race is probably $100 for a sprint distance race. So every race you do, that'll add up. Just because it's getting harder for event organisers to put on races now, just to close the roads and all the permits they have to get to put on events. There's a lot of hoops they have to jump through, more so than what they would have had to 5 or 10 years ago, because obviously because a big thing is trying to boost the local economy and bring tourists to the area, but a lot of these country areas where they've traditionally held races have got enough people now, and they don't really need to boost the tourism as much. And, and people very stuck in their routine. So like if you're going to put on a race and it's going to stop Bill and Jean from going down the road and getting their Sunday morning newspaper and their coffee, and all of a sudden these bikes are going past, they've closed the roads, or they can't get to their house, they have to park somewhere that's that makes them walk a couple of 100 meters, and can't have that. That's
Bill and Jean.
Bill and Jean, whoever it is. But there's a lot of barriers now to putting up, and with running it's the same for those, but I guess you've got the numbers in running. You can have a lot more people on a course for a half marathon than you can for a triathlon, because of the safety element of the bikes and things like that, and not using the same part of the road for the run course and the ride course, so you have to use more road. Because they used to have an event, like they used to have a World Championship Series event. This is close to when I first started triathlon, that went over the bridge.
Oh, really?
Or there was through Sydney Harbour. Not sure actually if it went over the bridge. The mass participation race, or the age group race, went over the bridge, I'm pretty sure, through Sydney Harbour. But then the elites, like the best in the world, were sort of zooming around the Circular Quay sort of area. But you couldn't do that now. The only reason Blackmores does it is because they've got 35,000 or whatever the number is now. People, and they can justify, and they can meet those costs, and hopefully with the world major, hopefully they get that status to bring some more people and further enhance the event. City to Surf, another one that gets away with massive road closures, I guess, because it's such a traditional event. It's been going for such a long time as well, and like 80,000 people. How can you just stop an event that gets that many people?
Yeah,
but it's massive.
To close down like Bondi would be so expensive.
Oh, of course it would.
Yeah,
of course it would. But yeah, it's a shame that triathlon can't put on events like they used to. Like definitely in Sydney, like there's barely anything in Sydney. Like just this morning actually in the Nepean Triathlon, the 40th, I think it's the 40th running, and that's Australia's oldest triathlon. They're really struggling to meet expenses just to put on the race. Like they used to have a massive professional prize purse. You used to get all the best triathletes in Australia, but now they're just trying to, and they've got sponsors on board still. Even with that, they're struggling to just break even. So it makes it hard for Sydney-based triathletes with all those extra expenses, because even if you're going down, because there's a big chunk of races run by a group called Elite Energy down the south coast. Like you heard of the big Huskerson Triathlon Festival?
Big. Yeah,
that's a massive one. They do a lot of races down there, but even to go down there, like most people would stay overnight because it's early morning start, so there's accommodation costs, and that's considered a local race for triathlon. That is considered a local race, and it's a 3 hour drive for some people to get there. You can't really get much closer than that anymore.
I think you've talked about like Craig Alexander, and kind of like the big names of the past. Like we had like Chris McCormack, and I think there was a few other guys who were kind of just
shy boy. Yeah.
Oh really? I didn't know that.
Anyone comes from the shy, mate.
Yeah.
Is that a controversial thing to say?
I don't know. I think my face said it all.
Who
beautiful part of the world.
Who are the big names at the moment? Like
the big names at the moment is Australia.
Yeah.
Well, long course, we don't have too many on their level that were like world champions or close to it. Our best elite guys, Matt Hauser, who got, if you might have seen him in the Commonwealth Games, got podium there. Jake Birtwistle, who used to be a runner, Tasmanian. He's one of our best guys there. On the girls' side is Nat Van Coverden, Sophie Lynn, the two best there. Emma Jeffcoat is from Sydney Northern Beaches, used to be in surflife saving. She's one of Australia's elite as well. So we're getting up there. We got a medal in the mixed team relay, and Matt got a medal in the individual in the Commonwealth Games. It was disappointing. A lot of criticism surrounding Tokyo, but I think people forget to realise, because people say, "Oh, why can't back in the golden era, things need to change, like all the staff need to change." But people just need to realise that the sport is now growing and it's becoming so much more competitive than what it was in the early 2000s. It's so much more international now, and it's one of the most international sports in the world. If you have a look at the start list for some of these World Series races, it's so well represented from all different countries in the world. It's because even though it's an expensive sport, there's people from third world countries. The World Triathlon, the federation, is trying to put effort into promoting opportunities for them, so that it's not a barrier for them. And you get people who were refugees, and like their way out of poverty is to actually do triathlon on the world stage, and they get opportunities to do that. And so racing is like a life or death sort of scenario for them. Because my coach used to be involved in that, in the development of triathletes from those developing countries, and it's amazing some of the stories he used to tell about the power of sport and the opportunities that it provided. But yeah, it's in a reasonable place. Could be in a better place, Australian triathlon, but definitely think it's harder, so much harder now to be competitive than what it was when it was in its infancy.
Yeah.
Because it only really started in the 90s. Like it's still a very new sport. in the early 2000s when we were sort of at our prime, or we had our best performances on the world stage.
Yeah, interesting. And I guess like you've done like a few competitions and raced for like Australia and things like that. Are there any sort of highlight races that you can kind of look back on? Or
probably the major highlight race was purely because of the circumstances around it. So I went to Mexico when I was 19, first year uni, and just before I got my pro license, I was going to go for my pro license. I just wanted to have one more crack at an age group race, and so I wanted to go the age group world championships and see how I went there. There was also an aquathon world championships in that week, so just the swim run component. So 1k swim, I think it was a run, swim run, 2.5k run, 1k swim, 2.5k run.
Oh, yeah.
And like I raced Alistair Brownlee and all that, like in the same race as them. So it was pretty cool, but I basically let the moment get to me, just basically warm myself out before the race even started. Like it was 36 degrees, 90% humidity. It was Cozumel, an island off Mexico, and by the second run, I think I was doing my long run pace. Like
nice.
I was that, and my heart rate felt like it was at 200, and I swam like an absolute brick. So that was, and I was in such a bad headspace after that, and then 24 hours later was my triathlon. So it was a weird decision, really, when I think about it, just doing 2 back-to-back races like that. But I think in my head, I thought the aquathon was like the main thing because I was with those elite guys. I was racing against some high-quality guys who were the best in the world. Then I went to the age group race, but I was just in the mindset of let's just enjoy it. And my coach helped me reframe this and not be too down on myself, to get over myself, basically. But he put it really nicely and really constructively. So I basically enjoyed every minute of it, and I had probably the best race of my life to win that under 19s event. Just 24 hours later. So it was and purely because of a mindset shift, rather than anything else. Like physically, there couldn't have been anything different. Physically, I should have been worse because I was 24 hours after a 30-minute race. But yeah, that was an extremely proud moment for me and a really good memory because of the lowest of lows to the highest of highs, really.
Yeah.
How did you reframe it?
I just think I was focused, and it's a bit of a cliche in the sporting world, but focus on process over outcome. But in terms of don't just focus on, I want to win, I want to get top 3, or I want to whatever. Just stay on thinking about what you can control at that present moment. And if you think about that, that'll sort of allow you to not worry about things you can control, not worry about what's going to happen in 5 or 10 minutes time, but just focusing on little things. 1, it helps mentally break down the race. 2, it's basically relaxes you and doesn't make you lose or waste unnecessary energy thinking about or worrying about things that other people might be doing or other things outside of your control. And I guess just enjoying it for what it is sort of helps relax. And like I physically made myself smile during the race, like just little things like that, just to remember this is not a chore. I'm here because I want to be here. And enjoy the moment, soak it up. It's not every day that I can, race in a world championship on the other side of the world. There's not, it's a pretty cool opportunity to do that. And to not waste that moment by being too tense or too worried about the result. Obviously push it hard and focus on, my form and my technique and positioning on the bike and all those little things, but to actually enjoy the moment at the same time. And it worked. So yeah, that was my most, my worst and my best memory in the space of 24 hours.
Good roller coaster.
That's crazy.
Yeah, massive. No, it really was. It was, and triathlon does that. Like most people say, and you see elite guys, they have absolute trash races and they come back and then win a race. There's so many things that can can go well for you. And sometimes it's a bit of luck. Sometimes, you know, you might just escape a crash. You might just be out of it, and that crash might take down, you know, 2 or 3 of the favourites. Yeah, there's a lot of things outside of control. But if you let that worry or let that get to you, then it's just going to impact your performance because you're not directing your energy or your focus on where it should be. Yeah.
It's interesting because you think, obviously you stress, well, I at least, you know, you stress about a race and your mind goes to things like you're saying that it's just useless energy at the end of the day. Thinking, you know, like you said, what's going to happen in 5 minutes? Or, you know, what's going to happen if I hit the wall? You know, all those sort of things.
Yeah, what ifs questions. What ifs, that little voice in your head,
Yeah.
It's, but anyway.
Yeah, you mentioned having like a pro license and age group stuff. How does that all work?
Yeah, so age group is basically to race for prize money and to be able to be selected on under 23 elite and open elite Australian teams and to earn world ranking points, you've got to have a professional license. And to win prize money with a prize purse over a certain amount, you've got to actually have this professional license. It's an Australian thing. I'm not sure if it exists in other countries. But basically, you've got to submit your race results and they'll determine. There is an automatic criteria. Like if you do this, you will be guaranteed to get your pro license. And then if you don't quite meet that, you can still apply and get discretionary. So that's definitely the next step up from junior or age group racing when you're still pretty young, to race at that elite level if you want to pursue that pathway. So Continental Cup's that first stage of elite racing, then up to World Cup and then the World Championship Series. So there's 3 tiers of international racing and your results determine whether, you know, it's selected by Triathlon Australia for each one. From World Cup, those top 2 tiers, and Continental Cup, depending on numbers of application. But as long as you need a professional license to do all 3, to do any of them. So that's how that come about. So it's just that next step from juniors to get to, and they do have an interim license, like an under 23 development one, which gives you the same entitlements, but it's sort of just that stepping stone to become that full open elite athlete. But it's not much different other than the fact that you're under 23 and you're still in that stage of development, or that transition period between junior and open elite athlete.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's hard to make a living in triathlon though. Don't get fooled by the professional tag.
Yeah, right.
You end up spending more than you earn.
Yeah.
Unless you're top 20 in the world.
Yeah.
And Triathlon Australia, you've categorised athletes funding as well, but there's still a lot. That's still not much compared to a lot of other sports. Compared to golf and tennis.
True. Yeah. So is that like a big thing for you then, like getting your pro license, or?
Well, I've had my pro license. Since I've sort of stopped racing, I've sort of gone back to just a general membership.
Okay.
If I pick it up again next year,
it wouldn't be hard to get, or?
It'd be interesting because I haven't raced for a long time for triathlon because through COVID there obviously wasn't much, but I'll look to apply for it again and see how we go. But I just want to be involved in the sport in some capacity. I don't want to. I'm still in 2 minds on what I really want to focus on.
Yeah.
I've been pondering this for too long. Obviously, should just make a bloody decision and go ahead. But
you're running all right still though, yeah.
But yeah, I just enjoy my running the most at the moment. That's why I've been doing this, because running is something that I've enjoyed the most. I think a big part of that is the environment and the group and the social element of it. Like obviously running with Run Crew, there's a lot of people, like-minded people that I train with. It's hard to find that at the moment in a cycling group. It used to be easy with the triathlon group I was with. There was sort of a routine rides, like 3 or 4 rides a week we used to do. But that group and that environment doesn't exist anymore. Swimming's easy because our swim squad is incredible, with numbers and with a lot of really competitive surf and pool swimmers in there. But yeah, it's probably that cycling piece that I find. I know I said long run is something I can do on my own, but long ride is something I just think, I have a short attention span when it comes to going out for a long ride. If I go out for a ride, I'm like, I just have to do efforts or something. I can't just go out for a spin for 100 Ks by myself. Some people do it. I don't understand. Yeah, anyway. A lot of respect.
I could last 30 minutes on the bike in the gym, for example.
Yeah.
And I'm too scared to go on the road, that's for sure. But
it feels longer in the gym because we have like an indoor trainer using Zwifts, which is like
yeah.
That's like an hour on that is like they say the equivalent of 90 minutes to 2 hours on the road because it just feels so long.
Yeah.
As long as you're actually putting some pressure through the pedals and you're not just watching Netflix. Because that's sometimes the lazy. If there's a little cloud outside, I'll hop on Zwift, put on some Netflix series and just kill time.
Yeah.
And think I'm getting the same benefit. Sometimes I do, but sometimes it's just like look at my power and go, no point getting on the bike at all. Yeah.
Fair enough. I guess wrapping up, unless you got anything else you want to ask me.
No, all good.
We've asked everyone what their favourite running race was. Is there anything that springs to mind?
That I've done or?
Yeah, that you've done.
Running race. I really like, as a race, Sutherland to surf, because that's my sort of our local Olympics really, because people don't really know anything about running in our area, but they know the Sutherland to surf because it's got it's a local version of the City to Surf. It's been around for 50 years. I think it's the 50th year this year.
Mm-hmm.
And just running, it's mainly downhill. It's 11K, running through the streets where I normally drive, seeing familiar faces on the road down to Cronulla. I think it's a pretty cool race, and as I said, unique opportunity to run on closed roads and main roads is something we can't take for granted anymore. And there was 4,000 people, it's not as big as it used to be, but it's still good to see it's thriving, and hopefully we'll pick up the numbers even more. And it raises money for Wanda Surf Life Saving Club as well. So it's a not-for-profit event. So always a good community event that brings out a lot of people, just those once a year fun runners. You see at some things, a lot of people just do that, and that's all they'll do or work towards for the year. But good local event that I enjoy the most. If I had to pick one, that'd be it. But I love track, right? I love everything, really.
Yeah.
I like the variety. I like cross country. I like track. I like the fact that I'm not doing the same thing all the time.
And any particular run, I guess similar to Mexico, that kind of experience,
like one race,
big breaks,
race.
Probably not, to be honest, because I haven't been at the elite level really for running where I've been able to experience something like that. Like I've never raced overseas in any major event. Obviously it's different when you're doing halves and full marathon, people chasing, in Berlin and New York and Boston and all the rest of them, but you haven't really had that experience running, I guess. Sorry.
That's all right.
Not on a large scale, I guess. Atmosphere-wise, probably the best atmosphere, like the state. I always really like, actually, the State 3K night is a really good night. That's next weekend. For those listening, entries close on maybe Tuesday. It's because it's last year there was, and it sounds, when I tell people, they're like, oh, that sounds like the most boring thing ever, but it's cool. It's actually really cool. So there was almost 600 runners, or just over 500 runners last year, all running 3K races. So I think there was 27 3K races in a row last year, and they're expecting something similar this year. But every single race is close because they've nominated time, and you're given a grade based on your nominated time. So they're all really close races. So starting from 5 or 6 minute Ks for the 3K, and going down to sub 8 minute runners for the winner of the A race. So it's pretty cool to see the gradual progression of time coming through, and then every single race is comes right down to the wire. and most people stay around. Most people get with their squads or their athletics clubs or rec running groups and stick around and support everyone in their group, because that's not something you can do often in a fun run, because everyone's on course at the same time, unless the elite runners are sticking around for those other people to finish. The fact that it's on a track, everyone's there. Once they run, they can stick around, grab something to eat, and enjoy the rest of the night. If they want to, and the weather's not too bad. So it's at ES Marks this year, which has just been resurfaced, relayed. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. That's always another good one. Atmosphere-wise, I like that one. And
are you running that, or?
Oh, I'm commentating this year.
Oh, cool.
So I won't be running that. Haven't got quite the speed in the legs. So I could probably still have a run in one of the earlier grades, to be honest, just for the sake of having a run. But just been asked to commentate that one, so I'll jump in there. But I'll probably do the State 5K is another good one. Similar sort of concept. Doesn't quite get the same numbers, but 5K on the track it'll be either January or February. I can't remember. But similar sort of thing. Yeah. Awesome. And Iron State relays I'm doing as well. Coming up, the track relays 4x1500 or 4x800, depending on where we get a team for. But yeah, plenty of stuff happening.
Yeah, we'll have to, I think I'm going to get down there for the 5,000 maybe. Well, one of them. Yeah, we'll see.
No, I highly recommend it. Track racing is good. Like people think track racing is just for the elite, but there's specific events within the year that definitely cater for absolutely everyone. Like you can almost walk a pram around the track and you won't feel out of place. So
that's great.
It's pretty cool what they're trying to do, and Athletics New South Wales trying to make it more inclusive and make people realise that athletics is like fun runs. Like it's not just for competitive. It's not just for the elite. Not just for those people who want to take running seriously. It's for all walks of life.
That's what we want. Yeah,
it is what we want.
All right, well that wraps it up. Thanks for joining.
No worries at all. Pleasure to be here. Sorry I was a bit late, but it was good chatting. And keep up the good work, guys, with this podcast. Hopefully get some a lot more guests on as well to give some insight into what's happening behind the scenes, because every runner comes from a different journey, different life experience, and it's actually interesting listening to those stories, because a lot of the time you have no idea unless you know them personally. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks man.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.